If you put yourself in a new surrounding with good people, and over time, you'll start seeing people reveal their true colors, not just on the good news, but on the bad news.
What does it really mean to be a man today? Strength, yes. Responsibility, absolutely. But what about discipline, vulnerability, and legacy? Welcome to Common Denominator, where we uncover the universal truths that connect us all. I'm your host, Moshe Popack. My guest today has built his life around helping men answer that question. Joel Gandara is an entrepreneur, author, coach, and the founder of the Brotherhood, a movement dedicated to helping men grow in purpose, discipline, and accountability. He's also the creator of the 31-Day Challenges, designed to push men beyond their comfort zones, reset their habits, and unlock lasting transformation. Joel believes masculinity isn't about outdated stereotypes. It's about living with clarity.
I think there's a need for men to become better, stronger leaders, and that doesn't mean physically strong.
His mission is bold, to help men become the best version of themselves so they can leave behind a legacy that truly matters.
Someone told me, it's worked with him, because I said, instead of every time you get that craving, can you just do push-ups? He said, man, every time I wanted to drink a beer, I said, fine. And he'd go do 30, 40, 50 push-ups. And he said that he had...
Hi, Joel. Welcome to Common Denominator.
Thanks, Moshe. My pleasure to be here with you.
So I want to go back because I always want to understand the origin, your original background, where you came from, and how you got here. In other words, your early years. Take us back to there.
I'm glad you asked, because in everything that I do, I always see it coming back to something from my past. My biggest thing that I think affected me as a kid was just before my 5th birthday. And I always say I'm not that smart, but I have a pretty good memory. I was in Cuba, and we had an opportunity to leave the country. It was a 1980 Mariel boat lifts. 125,000 people got out of Cuba. That's where you get the movie Scarface. Al Pacino, that's what it's about. There's a lot of good families in there, but Castro, he's evil, but he was smart. He plugged in a lot of mental asylum patients, criminals into those boats and got them into the U.S. like a Trojan horse. We were in one of those boats, and the part that, you could go on a boat ride, it doesn't change your life. But when you're an impressionable little kid and it's a 12-hour ride in this little tiny cramped boat, double capacity, the scary part was the middle 4 hours of that journey was the roughest storm. I've never seen a storm like that since. It's been 45 years since then. We would go up on these waves and you would look around, it was sky. It's all you saw. You didn't see any water when we were peaking on that wave. And when we'd come crashing down, it was 4 walls of water. And it was crying, screaming, yelling. And it went on like that for 4 hours, and water coming in. We had a tarp and we were covering ourselves. And my mom kept hugging me on one side and my older brother Neil on the other side, and crying. And she told me later, in fact, Telemundo was at my house doing a special about people who've done successful things after coming in the Mariel boat lift. And that's the first time I heard this. I'm behind the camera and my mom's being interviewed on my couch. And she started crying and saying, all I could think of was asking God for forgiveness, because here I brought my 2 little boys to come die in the ocean. That's how convinced. She said she can't believe we made it. I'd never heard that. I had to walk away. It impressed me. It made me cry, hearing my mom cry over that. But yeah, it was traumatizing. It was, to see that water crashing and the yelling and the screaming, to see that for 4 hours, it was like a bit of hell in my head. So yeah, that's how I started. I want to say things got better. It took a little while for them to get better. It was rough. I got here to Key West, the base, the naval base. Got sent directly to California because we had family there. And that's where I grew up. But the first many years were pretty bad, in the sense that we grew up near Oakland, California. We were very poor. My parents didn't speak English. It didn't matter what they did in Cuba. My mom was a high school physics teacher. She cleaned hotel rooms at the Sir Francis Drake in San Francisco. That's what she did for a living. My dad was a electrical technician, and he got a low-paying job in a low-paying radio station. So we lived a poverty line right about there all the time, and that was the beginning.
Years later, you end up here in Miami. What business did you go into at that point?
Yeah. So before I came to Miami in the year 2000, and I've now spent, half my life in South Florida. The business that I got into was something that I played around with when I was in Oakland in the Bay Area. And I tried everything. I sold collector cards in 4th grade and started buying my own toys. I started selling chocolates in high school and made $30 net in my pocket every day in the 90s. That's not bad, mid-90s. But right after I got out of high school, I started going to garage sales and buying things and taking it to the flea market. And I got lucky, but I put in the work. I went every weekend to look for stuff. I found a guy selling underwear in a garage sale. And he was a jockey sales rep, Jockey International. He was an independent rep, and he had all these leftover samples from the last collection. Did his big trade shows to JCPenney, Macy's, got the big sales, and was left with samples. I bought them all for $1, talked them down to $1, took them to the flea market, sold them for $6. And so I always had that. But then eBay came around in the late 90s, right before I moved here, and I started doing that. So when I moved to Miami, I had eBay, and I kept in contact with that guy. Every 6 months, he'd sell me another 2,500 pieces. And from there, I developed it a little further. I found a brand out of Mexico that had very little representation in the US, and I started importing their products. Now, this sounds sophisticated. I was in a 3-bedroom condo in a Kendall suburb of Miami, and it was just an extra little bedroom. That was my warehouse and my office. Those were my world headquarters. That's all I had. But little by little, kept going to trade shows, opening doors there, started selling the products. And over time, I created my own brand. And then I started acquiring competition and got it to be a decent-sized business over time.
What you do now as far as helping men, become stronger and better individuals, is that something that you want to do for a while?
No, I never imagined that, number one, anybody would listen to me. Well, who was I? I always had this complex of the poor kid who failed in school in the United States and had to repeat and all that because I came with some limitations. So I always had that in the back of my mind. Who am I? Who's going to listen to me? What do I know? But I'll tell you, that did motivate me in one way. It lit a fire to learn more. So maybe not at a young age, but once I got well into my 20s, I started reading books. The Secret, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all these things that really inspired me. And I always thought, I'm doing this just to get better. I just want to get better at everything that I do. And I've read hundreds of books. And what helped is I started running ultra marathons for a while. So there you can knock out 3 books a week on audio because you're out there for so long, right? Especially if you speed it up. And the more I did it, I just said, this is to help me. But then as the business grew and I had a right-hand guy and then another right-hand guy, I realized, I'm providing value to their lives. I'm sharing with them everything I learned, plus my wife, plus my 4 kids. I could take this a little further, but I thought that was it. I tried with my employees and sometimes I'd make breakthroughs. But as far as creating it into a movement and something powerful, that all happened kind of organically, on accident. It wasn't intended.
What are you seeing now with men? What is the true need and the one that you're trying to help fill?
Yeah, I think there's a need for men to become better, stronger leaders. And that doesn't mean physically strong. That's cool. If you can be physically strong, that's neat. It doesn't mean to be mean or demanding or be a dictator, just to lead. And that means leading themselves, first of all. They can't be sitting on a couch drinking beer all weekend and think, I don't know why my kids don't listen to me and my wife doesn't respect me. Well, start with yourself. Take care of yourself. Be disciplined. Have an hour that you're going to get up. It doesn't have to be at 4:30 in the morning. It could be at 7. But get up at 7 and go for a walk. Go work out. Don't eat junk food. Don't drink. I think that's a starting point. All those basic things that we all know. Because I could tell you some crazy, go do a cold plunge and then get in the sauna. I do all those things, but that's not necessary. I think what's necessary is keeping your word, keeping a schedule, eating healthy, treating people with respect, listen a little bit more. Don't jam your opinion down people's throat. And I'm not perfect. I've been working at this for a long time. I still have to bite my tongue a little bit when my wife is telling me something or my kids and I want to give my opinion, but I have to remember to just listen a little better. So, and then there are things we could do if we're married, if we're a guy, to treat our wife a certain way that is respectful. And look, I think we're in a confusing time. And I've talked to some interesting gentlemen, Dr. Robert Glover, no more Mr. Nice Guy. I had him on my podcast. And he said something really good about how guys just aren't leading, right? They're this quiet, nice guy. They want to do everything for them, but behind the scenes they're really upset. And then they're blowing up that they're not getting what they want. Say what you want. And then listen to what the other person wants, right? I'll give you an example. My wife has told me many times that she appreciates that I don't ask her, where would you like to go eat tonight? I just say where we're going to go eat tonight. I've been with her for 23 years married. I know what she likes to eat. She doesn't want a wishy-washy guy that doesn't even know where he's going to take her. So I just say, get ready. Tonight we're going to go to dinner. You're going to love it. And I take her. And I've asked her before, what would you think if I kept asking, I don't know, what do you want? And leaving it up to you. And she said, I like that you lead and I don't have to worry about those things. So those are some minor things.
Yeah, no, I think for sure, it doesn't mean it's mean, right? People think that like, you're taking assertiveness and leading. Tell us about the Brotherhood.
Yeah, so 700 men have been through my 31-day program over the last 2.5 years since I started it. And all this happened organically. This wasn't a business. This wasn't a movement. It was just, hey, let's do some challenges together. After a few months of doing it, someone said, why don't you write a book? Because you used to coach me, and I like the way you approach this thing as opposed to using other books that we found out there. So I wrote a book. Out of every class, we average about 24 guys per class. Every 5-6 weeks, we start a new class. I will pick a small group of guys, 3, 4, 5, and I invite them to fill out an application for the Brotherhood. And then my board reviews them and selects who gets in and who doesn't. And then they join us on this journey, which I think is pretty interesting. I think it's unique. I don't know. I've never been in a men's club or a men's group, but for me, it seems pretty unique. We talk about business a lot, but we talk about personal development, family, and all the things I think matter in a man's life. But we do it through speakers that we have. We hold each other accountable. We have a book of the month club, so it's always about self-development, improving ourselves. And then we come together once a month on a Zoom for 1 hour. Guys are all over the country, some all over the world, and we come together on that. And we do multiple retreats a year. A few months ago, we went to Bolivia to climb a mountain, a 20,000-foot mountain. A couple months ago, we went on a 3-day adventure survival challenge in Bolivia. In a few months, we're going to Argentina to do 4 days of hiking in the Patagonia Mountains. Those are the kind of cool things that we're doing. And I think something like that is missing in men's lives. Women are better at having friends, and it seems to me like men aren't. They're great at business a lot of the time, but they don't have that connection and that vulnerability, that opportunity to come together where we have a speaker, let's say, who talked about suicidal ideations. No group of guys is sitting around a table talking about that and bringing a speaker to talk to them about that. That's pretty rare. Or a sex therapist that comes in and opens up that conversation for the men to open up and learn more. So that's the type of stuff we do.
Because I think we were told to be vulnerable, right? From the generation before, men do not have the space to do that. I know I'm similar, I'm part of YPO, we talked about that. So it's also a group of guys, entrepreneurs that come together, right, about family and business and things like that, but in a confidential setting. How can men feel safe to be vulnerable? What's actually like practical steps to become more vulnerable?
I recently heard the definition of vulnerability, if I'm not mistaken, in the Webster's dictionary, is something that sounds military. It says that leaving yourself open to invasion and attack makes sense for a vulnerable target. Like a school is a vulnerable target if they don't lock it down. But when we're talking about each other, we're not a target, because you tell me something sad going on in your life and you're struggling with, I'm not going to attack you. I think we have this prehistoric concept in our brain that if I tell people, they're going to look at me funny and attack me and kick me out of the tribe. That's some pretty prehistoric thinking. I think that's changed. Now, I do believe I am one of those exceptions. I think I could come to my wife from a pretty vulnerable standpoint, but if a guy is not with the right woman and he opens up too deep or too often, he could lose respect from that woman. That woman might go, this guy's always crying, right? That's not the guy that I want leading me. She may not say that. A woman might say, I want a vulnerable guy, but if she sees too much of it, too deep, too often, she might get turned off. For us, it's different, because I think I set the tone leading these conversations where I share that, we're going to talk about this. If someone opens up, we're here for you. Everything we do is confidential. And I lead the way. I'm an open book. So if I start the conversation with, I've had trouble with that myself, and here's how I worked on it, now I see that more guys will open up. And once you do that once, that guy was in that one call, if it was 40 people on that Zoom, they all feel open to set it up for the next conversation that we have. So it's a spiral effect in a good way.
I saw a stat about 50 years ago, people would have the space to trust their deepest secrets to like maybe 2 or 3 friends. And nowadays, people don't have anybody to tell. Do you think that that's that weight of your trauma, your guilt, fear, shame, sitting on you and not being able to, as a friend of mine would say, get that poison out, is leading to more and more mental health issues?
Oh, absolutely. I talked to a friend on the way here today, and we were in a closed room environment a month ago. And he said that he had thoughts of suicide because a company owed him 1.4 million and wasn't paying. And it was causing a lot of stress. And the bank wasn't going to renew his line of credit, and just a bunch of downhill steps that he started thinking about suicide. He said, what good am I in this world? All these crazy thoughts that you could have that thought. It's normal. Obviously executing on it's horrible. And on the way here, it all got resolved. The money came in, finally, some threatening, and he got the money. So on the way here, him and I had a conversation because once he said that, I said, book a call. I want to hear about this. And when we were done talking, and he's out of the thick of it, it's all fine now. He told me that he really appreciated just being able to tell me all this stuff on a half hour that we spoke on the way here. So why is that a big deal? If he had enough people in his life that he could talk about that, he doesn't need me. So it's not about me. It's about just somebody who's willing to listen. It could be any friend. But I think that's the problem. We are all in our own silos. We think we're being social because we're on the social media telephone. And so, yeah, we're interacting, in the new way, but we're not doing this. I don't think the average guy is sitting down and having these type of conversations.
Yeah. People have trusted. I think that's what it is, right? We come in like, we're little babies, children, and have trusted, and they've been betrayed. They felt betrayal. How do you get over that, right? Then again, trust again, because that is actually the way to heal. So what would you advise for men to be able to go out one more time? I mean, obviously I hear it from women too, but once you've been betrayed, how do you trust again? If that's the mechanism to try to become more and more free and more aligned with who you are.
I don't focus on me personally. I don't think about the past. I don't dwell on it. If somebody screwed me over before, okay, I'm moving forward. But some people aren't that way. They're wired differently. They're backwards looking, and that causes potential depression. But I've seen this firsthand from guys that have been in my group who have told me, I've been in here for a few months, and I was burned in the past many times by people that I thought were my friends. But this can't be wrong. I see what's happening here. So I think if you put yourself in a new surrounding with good people, there's the potential that give it time, and over time, you'll start seeing people reveal their true colors, not just on the good news, but on the bad news. And once you start seeing that over time, you might start letting your guard down a little bit. I personally have seen it over and over. Every couple of months, someone will come out in our group and say, I've been here for a little while and I really like you guys. Because we do things like break out and you guys go have a call together. Here's a topic. Or we have a retreat together. Go climb a mountain together and see when you're in those trenches and feeling uncomfortable and see what type of things come out of it. I think don't give up on humanity because 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 people did something wrong. There's another 8 billion out there that haven't wronged you, and you're the only one that loses if you put up that guard and don't let anybody in.
Yeah, and again, we can also have, I know you talk about like the discipline. So if you have bad habits, right, how can someone take action? Again, it starts with the mind and what's going on to even start developing good habits. You've been eating junk food and garbage. How do you go ahead and start eating healthy food that makes you feel better? Right? You could lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. How do people actually start today?
Yeah, a lot of different ways. And I've worked with people who one way works better for them, another way works better for someone. So it could be a lot of different things, whether it's a tactical thing, like pick the one thing that's the worst for you that you're doing, take that out. And instead of that, I'll give you an example. Someone told me this worked fantastic for them. During my 31-day challenge, one of the rules is no alcohol at all. So someone told me, this worked with them on a one-on-one call we had, because I said, instead of every time you get that craving, can you just do push-ups and check in with me when you do them? And he said that worked for him. He said, man, every time I wanted to drink a beer, I said, fine. And he'd go do 30, 40, 50 push-ups. Then he'd text me and go, that was awesome. Because they get this dopamine, they start feeling really good. And after enough time of doing that, you start looking a little bit better, and that could be encouraging. I don't know if that'll work for everybody, probably not. For me, something that has helped tremendously, a few things. Surrounding myself with people that are healthy, that don't have horrible habits. We all have some bad habits. I occasionally will nibble on my nails if I'm bored. I found it difficult to break that. I put some stuff on that makes it taste horrible, and then I go months without doing it. But I think being surrounded with people that have big goals and big aspirations and aren't tempting you to drink, aren't tempting you to smoke weed, whatever you think that thing is that you want to break away from, I think that's helped me a lot. The other one is I have always put myself in a position to know that I'm a leader. And I feel like whatever I do is going to multiply itself. You've got a lot of kids. I've got some kids. I've got 4. So I feel like the 3 boys are looking at me to show them the example of what it's like to be a man. My daughter is looking at me to be the example of what her future husband might be sort of like. My wife depends on me to lead our family in a right direction. If I have enough passion and love for my family, what am I going to do? Sit on the couch all weekend and drink beer? Maybe it's Monday morning. That's why I've used that analogy a couple of times. But I think those are the little things that I have to decide, why do I want to do this? I want to be a great leader for my family. And oh, by the way, when I know I have a retreat coming up next month like I do, I'm not showing up out of shape. Maybe those potato chips are there and I see them occasionally. I'm not going to eat them. Instead, I'll eat a carrot. Nobody ever overeats carrots or broccoli or anything like that, or steak. So those are the little things that I do. I want to keep showing up strong for those that are important to me, especially my wife and my kids.
Yeah, I think about that. My oldest is 19. I've 9 boys. What would you say is like practical tips as a father and a husband? What are things that I can start, and then for the audience that they can start doing today that you can do that will end up with positive results for them?
Yeah. So this might seem kind of weird, but I'm going to exercise throughout the day no matter what. I train judo, I train jujitsu, I lift weights, I ruck, I walk, I jog, I do yoga. I make sure, ever since they were little, that I show them that physical activity is a normal, everyday thing in our family. I know this is a small, simple physical thing, but it pours over into everything you do. If I'm encouraging my kid to, hey, you should read a book on this, and I'm sitting around doing nothing all day, that's not someone they want to hear it from. But I've found this. My oldest is 20, very similar to yours. He's a soldier. But they haven't seen that. If I know I'm going to go knock out 100 push-ups right now, I do it right there so that they see me doing that. I don't go away to a gym. My gym's in my garage, so they see me doing that there. Another thing, to develop, I've given this talk to groups, to entrepreneur groups before, and it's to develop strong and independent children. And it's a 10-step program that my wife and I have developed. It's nothing we sell or we just share it. It's on YouTube. Well, number 1 is a united front. The husband and the wife have to be on the same page, because if you want your son to earn things and your wife wants him to just have it for free and easy because you have the means, well, that's going to cause a problem in your relationship. But once the two are somewhat aligned, and I can tell you because I have got a 20, an 18, and an 11-year-old boy, 13-year-old daughter, but I've seen what's happening already. We've deprived them of the luxuries of having wealthy parents. They can go on all the vacations with us. They can live in the nice neighborhood. They can live in a nice house. They can have all of that. But my kids don't get a car. They don't even get college paid for. Then how are they doing this? My son is 20. Well, he works as a full-time mechanic, and he's a reservist in the Army as a mechanic. But he's getting along pretty well and making a lot of money. My 18-year-old will make about $90-something thousand this year. They both bought their cars cash. They pay their insurance. They even pay me rent. I don't need the money, but I want to create reality. Because in reality, in the 90s, I was paying more in rent to my parents than they pay me today. And that was in the 90s where money was worth a lot. But they're paying their car insurance. They're doing all their own things. And they're becoming strong, independent young men. So I think that's one thing that I could teach them things. But if later I gave them the easiest life in the world, I could come back and complain. I don't know. I've given them everything. Why don't they work for anything? Because I gave them everything. So I don't.
I definitely relate to that. My wife and I both worked very hard also as, whether in law school, business school, growing our business. We work together, the kids see that. And my 2 oldest boys, just to your point, they have a vending machine business. So they got to pay their own bills and do their own stuff. So
Love it.
we all, the top 7, we all train jujitsu. And I built out a dojo in my garage. So
That's amazing.
Yeah. If you can create the environment that they enjoy discipline, if they enjoy the discipline, they get the dopamine from something healthy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's the way to go. I had a moment, and you can appreciate that. I have a 12-foot by 12-foot mat in the garage, plus machines and a sauna and all these things. And I was working out in there lifting weights, and my 2 oldest boys said to me, this was about a year ago or so, they said, hey, we have friends coming over, a bunch of friends to lift weights. And I go, oh, do you guys want me to get out of here because your friends are coming? And they go, no, you could stay with us. You could work out with us. That to me was so big because it meant they're not embarrassed of me. They like having me around. Apparently their friends must not think bad things about me if they want me around. And I think we get that if we build it. Because I hear a lot of guys say that their kids don't want to do things with them. They don't, well, you got to wonder, what have you built with them? You training jujitsu with them and working out with them creates a special bond with them, especially boys. Boys, when they're little, I did this a lot, and it's one of the biggest things I miss in my life is wrestling with my kids when they were little. You know, that rolling around on the floor and showing them like how far you could take it, but let go. And they accidentally hit you too hard, but then they learn empathy when you go, oh, that really hurt. You can't do that. Those are some beautiful life lessons.
Yeah, for sure. And Joel, what's something, looking back at your life, what's something that you're grateful for?
It's hard to say this, but I didn't have what other kids had. Like, I never got signed up for Little League Baseball. It was my dream. I played up to college. I got hurt and I stopped playing. But I never got signed up for karate. You know, growing up in the 80s, every kid wanted to do karate. There was the Karate Kid and Chuck Norris and Van Damme and all these amazing things. So I never had any of those things. And in one way, it makes me really sad. And I wish I would have had the normal American childhood that all these other kids had, and parents who hugged them and said, I love you, and you're great. I didn't have any of that. They went to work and I went to school and I played outside. But sometimes I think my life is pretty amazing. I have the favorite life of anyone I've ever met. I wouldn't trade places with anyone. And I go, maybe that was part of it. Maybe because I had such a boring childhood, I wasn't in anything. I wanted to be part of stuff. So I fought my way to be more friendly with people. In fact, one of my proudest moments was third grade. I won friendliest in the school. So I think that maybe came from having a bad situation, and there was pain and there was suffering and a lot of rejection. So I know that sounds weird, but I'm kind of grateful for all that.
And what would you say is a common denominator of great leaders?
You know, it's hard to, I have a friend who's a billionaire. It's not a friend, it's somebody I know. And so he's very successful. But I don't know that him and I have too many common denominators other than hard work. I don't happen to care for the way he looks at his employees and treats them and stuff like that. So I don't know what a great leader is the question. So I don't think it has to do with financial success necessarily. I guess if you put people first, like when I talk to somebody, this is different for me. I want to hear more about you than I want to talk about myself, but I understand the format of a podcast where I'm the guest. But I think if you put people first, and that doesn't mean disrespect yourself and make yourself bad. It's just, man, let me put myself in that person's situation. Why would he think like that? Why would he say that? Why would he do that? And once I understand that, I think I could lead that person a little bit better.
And just to answer, just to go full circle, I think a great leader jumps first into the hard things and holds themselves accountable. I mean, I think that's, you know, there's hard things, and as long as their heart is clean, right? They're going with full intention. They screw up, they do it one way or the other. We're all just human.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
Right? So it's not like you're going to get it perfect. There is no perfection. Nobody knows what's going to happen, but that's kind of the way I see it. But I really appreciate the time, Joel.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Moshe.
It's really been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. If you're enjoying Common Denominator, make sure to hit like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Leave a review and share the podcast with a friend for more stories that inspire, challenge, and connect us all. We appreciate you listening.